So look, most investment advice out there is basically designed to keep you compliant and mediocre, right? It's either the same recycled Wall Street narratives that everyone's heard 1,000 times, or it's coming from advisors who've honestly never managed real capital themselves. And a few years ago, I realized I needed something different, an actual edge that could protect my money from inflation and all this currency debasement we're seeing while still generating real returns. So I started experimenting with different strategies, different services, and just trying a bunch of stuff. And it was about 5 years ago that I found what I was looking for. It's called Insider, and it's offered by this firm called Capitalist Exploits. And I'll be honest with you right up front. Insider is expensive, and it's definitely not right for everyone. If you're just starting out with investing, or you're looking for those stock tips that'll help you get rich quick, that's not what this is. But what it is a research service run by ex-hedge fund managers with actual decades-long track records. Not marketers pretending to be investors, actual investors. And as someone who's been a member for about 5 years now, I want to show you exactly how it works, what you actually get, and also the friction points that might make it the wrong fit for you. Because here's the reality we're dealing with. Traditional investing strategies just don't work the same way anymore. Central banks are kind of trapped, currencies are being debased at unprecedented rates, and the institutions you were told to trust are either incompetent or actively working against you. I mean, index funds aren't going to save you with such high inflation, and your financial advisor is reading the same Bloomberg articles you are. So you need an actual edge. So what is Insider exactly? Insider is a members-only investment research service for contrarian investors who are hunting for asymmetric opportunities that the market hasn't priced in yet. And it's run by Capitalist Exploits, which was founded by Chris McIntosh, and it's staffed by ex-hedge fund managers with decades of combined experience in global macro value investing. And that's the first thing I want to get across here. Insider is built for contrarian investors, people who aren't satisfied with 8 to 10% returns and want access to asymmetric upside. So Chris and the guys specialize in finding undervalued, under-the-radar assets from all over the world and betting on them before the rest of the market catches on. So this isn't your typical stock tips newsletter. It's a deep dive into global macro trends and how to profit from them. But what do you actually get? Well, that's what I really want to answer for you today, because Insider comes with a bunch of different features and benefits, so let me walk you through my 5 favorites. First is their weekly research newsletter, which is called Insider Weekly. So every week, Chris and the team send out their thoughts on the markets. So what's happening in the world, how it could impact different investments, and where they're seeing opportunities. And this isn't some skimpy email with a half-assed stock tip at the end, but it's also not a 40-page fluff piece. This is 2 to 3 pages of concentrated analysis, the kind of memo you'd get if you were an LP in a macro fund. Because if you're a busy professional or managing a family office or something like that, you don't need more content. You need clarity. So they do the research and they just deliver you the end result. Now, within each issue of Insider Weekly, there's this standalone section called the Big Five, which is 5 investment angles that they're looking at right now. And for me, the Big Five alone might be worth the entire price of Insider, because these are angles that I wouldn't hear about anywhere else. So let me give you an example from April 30th, 2025, and I encourage you to verify this for yourself. I'm going to open up my computer, but if you just Google chainsaw capitalism in quotes, it'll come right up. And so here are the 5 picks from that week. Honghua Group, which is a land equipment drilling manufacturer in China. Chukong Petroleum, which is a pipeline steel supplier also in China. Northern Dynasty Minerals, which is a copper and gold developer in Alaska. Rhodium, which is a niche precious metal used in catalytic converters. And Wilhelmsen, which is a maritime services conglomerate in Norway. So these aren't the kind of picks you see everywhere else. They're not recommending Tesla and Palantir. They're digging up opportunities where no one else is paying attention. And because it's been about 9.5 months since they published those picks, I wanted to follow up on how they actually performed. And so I'm comparing the closing prices from April 30th, 2025 until today, which is February 13th, 2026. And so Honghua Group closed on April 30th at 14.3 cents, and today it closed at 20.5 cents for a 43% gain. Chukong Petroleum closed at 19 cents on April 30th, and today it closed at 35 cents for an 84% gain. Northern Dynasty Minerals closed at $1.15 on April 30th, and today it closed at $2.16 for an 88% gain. Rhodium, which again is a mineral, not a company, closed at $5,375 per troy ounce on April 30th, and today it closed at $10,750, which is exactly a 100% gain. And Wilhelmsen closed at €32.50 on April 30th, and today it closed at €59.90 for an 84% gain. So in 9.5 months, these 5 picks made anywhere from 43% on the low end to 100% on the high end, and the average across all 5 is 80%. And the reason I chose this particular Big 5 is actually for 2 reasons. First, this issue of the newsletter is publicly available, so you can verify these numbers for yourself. And second, I personally bought into one of these stocks, Northern Dynasty. So first, I bought it at $1.25 and sold it at $2 for a 60% gain, and then I bought it again at $1 when it dropped all the way down, and sold it again at $2 when it jumped back up for another 100% gain. And both of those happened in the span of a couple of months. Now, of course, not every pick performs like these, and some of them sit flat for years, but that's the nature of asymmetric bets. I mean, you're not looking for consistent 10% gains. You're positioning for the occasional winners of 100% and beyond that more than compensate for the duds. So if you want to check out Insider Weekly, I'll explain how to get it for just $1 in a few minutes here. But Insider Weekly is just the beginning, because the second big feature of Insider is real-time trade alerts. When the team's ready to pull the trigger on a position, or when geopolitical events make one of their investment theses especially urgent, they send an alert via email telling you exactly what they're doing and why. And this is the important part. They don't just tell you to buy XYZ stock. They tell you what they're buying, when to buy it, how to position size, and even when to consider selling. Now, if those sound like small details to you, you might not be the right fit for Insider, because you probably don't appreciate how rare it is for a service to give you all those details up front. It's like sitting at the table with the people who move markets, not reading about their moves 6 months later in the Wall Street Journal. Now, the third big feature is access to the Insider portfolio of all the investments the team has recommended and is currently holding. And each position includes the full research thesis, entry prices, position sizing, and live updates as the trade evolves. So you're following a professional portfolio in real time with full transparency into every decision. But I know when I was considering joining Insider for the first time, I saw all these features and I just thought to myself, it all sounds great, but what if they make bad investments, right? Because all this information is useless if it doesn't help you make money. And I hope you're thinking the same thing, because you should never take something at face value when it comes to your investments. But that's where feature number 4 comes in, which is the Slack community. As an Insider member, you join thousands of other contrarian investors and the entire Capitalist Exploits team, who all discuss their positions in real time inside Slack, which, if you're not familiar with it, it's basically a mix of an instant messaging platform and a forum. And I have to say, it's a very active community with people online 24/7 in every corner of the globe. For example, last year I was looking into a lithium mining play in South America, and I know the macro case for lithium with electric vehicles and battery storage, but I still had questions about the specific jurisdiction and whether the regulatory environment was stable enough for a 3 to 5 year hold. So I just posted some questions in the Slack community, and by the next morning, I had responses from a geologist who'd worked in that exact region, a former mining executive who gave me insights into the permitting process, and another member who lives there and gave me ground-level insights on the political situation. So that's the kind of information you cannot get from reading articles or watching YouTube videos. It's real-world intelligence from people who actually have skin in the game. Or how about another example? About 2 years ago, an Insider member who works in logistics noticed some unusual shipping activity in a port in Eastern Europe. And then another member who does commodities trading connected that unusual activity to a sanction-driven supply chain shift. And so within a week, these guys, along with a few others, had identified a small cap energy company that was perfectly positioned to capitalize on that shift. And because we'd all been discussing it in Slack in real time, I understood the thesis inside and out before deploying any capital, and that stock doubled over the next 6 months. So with Insider, I'm not following a stock tip from a newsletter. I'm looking at live, boots on the ground data that won't hit the mainstream news for another 3 months. It's like insider trading without insider trading. Everything's legal, but you're months ahead of CNBC. And if I'm honest, the Slack community is by far the number one reason I renew my membership year after year. But rounding out my list of the top 5 features is the live monthly Q&A sessions with the Capitalist Exploits team. These are monthly live calls where you can ask Chris and Brad absolutely anything. Plus, every call is recorded and fully searchable by topic, so you can instantly pull up video clips of what they said about Bitcoin 7 years ago. And spoiler alert, they've been bullish on Bitcoin for a very long time, which obviously has been an extremely good investment for them. But what really sets the team apart is their investment philosophy, because this isn't day trading, it's contrarian value investing, where they're seeking out asymmetric bets where the upside is many multiples of the downside. And of course, they aren't right 100% of the time, and individual positions will go red. But that's the beauty of asymmetric bets. If you make 10 bets and 9 stay flat or lose money, the one that hits can make up for all the rest. And how do they do it? By focusing on assets that are deeply out of favor, things that are cheap and unpopular. They don't care about ESG scores or Wall Street narratives. They care about energy, food, and the raw commodities that actually run the world. And so, in practice, that might mean sectors in multi-year bear markets or stocks that are down 90% from their highs, because that's often where they find the biggest opportunities. Buying when something's down 90% and then waiting for a 10x recovery. But to be clear, this isn't about chasing 10 baggers for thrills. It's about positioning capital where it's protected from currency debasement and institutional rot, and then capturing the asymmetric upside when the market finally wakes up. But anyway, that's what you get. Weekly research, trade alerts, portfolio access, community intelligence, and direct Q&A access. But none of these features matter if they don't produce real results. So let's look at what other Insider members are saying. Because they're rated 4.8 out of 5 on Trustpilot across 500 reviews. And a 4.8 out of 5 is very rare in the investment industry. Most investment newsletters sit between 1 and 3 out of 5 because they just don't deliver. And I'll show the current ratings for all the most popular newsletters on the screen right now so you can see exactly what I mean. But a 4.8 means Insider members are seeing real results. But I don't want you to take my word for it. I want to read you just the most recent review on their Trustpilot page so you can get a tiny feel for what people are saying about Capitalist Exploits and Insider. And this one comes from Andrew in the US, who says, Capitalist Exploits is the no-bull, straight-talk cheat sheet to true diversification. And I want to read Andrew's entire review just to give you a bit more context. Here's what he says. I found Capitalist Exploits through a YouTube interview of Chris McIntosh. Within a few minutes of that interview, I recognized that Chris and the team are like-minded investors that think outside the box. What I mean is the team has an accurate view of global events and why that's relevant to investment allocation. I subscribed immediately after listening to the interview, and shortly thereafter started redeploying my capital in many of the newsletter recommendations. As a US-based investor, one of my goals was to get some of my capital outside of the dollar, and identifying foreign companies worthy of capital allocation was one of my goals. I'm currently up approximately 12% after approximately 6 months of beginning my subscription, which implies a 24% rate of return. So yes, I'm very happy with the knowledge the newsletter imparts on its subscribers. By the way, I've spent more time than I can ever hope to recover listening to the constant parade of shills and pumpers featured on CNBC and elsewhere, along with what currently passes for most investment advice these days. With the current bifurcation taking place away from the dollar, I believe it's imperative to acquire a global view that maintains impartiality. The newsletter does just that. So that's what Andrew had to say. But I also want to tell you that Insider isn't for everyone. First, if you trust the Fed, believe the mainstream media, or think your financial advisor has your best interests at heart, this won't resonate. Second, you need to be comfortable being early and sometimes very early, because the guys regularly spot trends 12 to 24 months before the market catches on, and that means that you might sit in a position that looks stupid for a year or two while everyone else is buying Nvidia. So if you need quick wins or social validation, this won't work for you. Third, this isn't for gambling your last $1,000 on a moonshot. It's for serious wealth builders who know that 8 to 10% index returns won't protect them in the macro environment ahead. Fourth, if you're a complete beginner to investing, you might find the amount of information you get with Insider to be too much. And fifth, you need capital you can afford to deploy for 2 to 3 years. So if you're living paycheck to paycheck or need liquidity next quarter, this strategy won't work for you. But if none of that scares you off and you're ready to take a long-term contrarian approach to your investing, here's what I suggest. You're probably skeptical, and that's good. I don't want you to take my word for it. I want you to audit their research yourself. And the easiest way to do that is through their newsletter, Insider Weekly. Now, this isn't the full Insider experience, and you won't get access to the Slack community or the real-time trade alerts, but it does give you a front row seat into how their minds work. You get to see their data, their logic, and the way they draw conclusions. Usually Insider Weekly is $35 a month, but if you use the link in the description, you'll get your first month for just $1. So for $1, you can see if their research is actually different. And if you get inside, read the research, and realize it's just more of the same mainstream noise, just cancel it. You've lost nothing but a few minutes of your time. But if you get in there and realize, like I did, that these guys are seeing moves before the market does, then this could be what allows you to stop playing defense and start playing offense. And once you're in that headspace, you'll know whether the full Insider membership is worth it. So that's my recommendation. Start with the $1 trial, read the research, judge for yourself, and if you join the full Insider program, message me in Slack and I'll help you get oriented. The link's below, and I'll talk to you soon.